go to item number 2, no public appearances, so we can go straight to item number 3, which is the approval of the minutes from December. So we'll need a motion to approve those minutes.
So motioned.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes from December?
I just wanted to make note that there was just a typo in the president's report that it was his daughter. That's all, Jenny. Otherwise, they were perfect.
Thank you for that. And any other discussion? All right, so we can then vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, no. And the motion has passed. Moving on to agenda item number 4, the treasurer's report. And we've got the November financial overview and the November register.
Yep, so we're getting close to the end of the year here. As you'll notice, November was a 3 pay period month. So expenses on the personnel side were a little bit higher than normal. That happens a couple times a year. We saw it back in May as well. Other than that, there were a couple of things I wanted to point out just in the register. In account 350, we've got a pretty big purchase there for Kramer air filters. So we have to replace the filters on the heat recovery unit on the roof, and then the air handler once a year. So that is an expected expense, but kind of a bigger one for us. And then also in account 355, Emmons Business Interiors, we did a couple of task chair replacements. So we're 10 years old now, and the chairs that the patrons use are in pretty good shape, but the chairs that the staff sit in every single day are starting to sort of wear down. So we just replaced 2 this year, and I'm hoping to replace some more next year, probably for the service desks. We're trying to Kevin's really good about taking the arms from one chair and a back from another and a seat from a third, and kind of Frankensteining them together so that we get as much use out of them as we can. But every now and again, there just aren't enough parts to make a whole chair. So that's what that one, and I held that one off as long as I could to the end of the year to make sure that we had enough money in that account. That's the account where we bought the RFID pads this year. So I was a little bit nervous about going over in that one. We had moved some money out of salaries into that one, if you remember, through a budget amendment. But it looks like we're going to be just fine. And I think that's all that caught my eye. We did spend quite a bit on collections, but that's typical for this time of year. So that's not really a surprise. Were there any questions? Is there anything that jumped out at anyone?
I have a couple questions, Wendy.
Yeah.
Back to the overview report, the variances. Well, let me back up. On the December, when do you anticipate those numbers being reconciled? Next time around, we will see December.
So at our next meeting, we'll have not final numbers, but we'll have a guess at what December is. It won't be an audited report until about April. Okay. Because that's when the city will finish its audit. But we should have a pretty good sense of where we are. I feel like during the audit, a handful of things change usually, but not very much. So we'll have a pretty good idea at our next meeting how the end of the year turned out. I also keep a second copy of this overview that I call the monkey budget, and I start projecting out about halfway through the year where I think we're going to be. And in my monkey budget, we've got about $150,000 left over.
Okay, I guess that was leading to my next question. Then I see a 17.24% as far as remaining in budget overall. Yeah. Expense to revenue. Do you believe that's on target? I mean, we're on target. I mean,
we're going to have more left over this year than usual, for sure. I mean, just because I would point to performers that we didn't have because of COVID, supplies we didn't need because of COVID, a lot of programming supplies, that kind of thing. Having said that, we did spend a lot of money on things we didn't expect to, like plexiglass and, stanchions and signs and all that kind of stuff. So we're not going to save an incredible amount of money by having been closed, but more than usual.
But I do recall some major expenses with facility and so forth. Can you excuse me, does that fall in under this report as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, those were some huge expenses throughout this past year
Right.
as well. So I'm
Right.
just curious as to how that would impact this budget, that's all.
Yeah, and I will note that coming up in December, we are gonna have about a $2,000 charge for some HVAC work, as well as some more, and I'll talk about that more in my library director's report. We've got some issues going on with the HVAC system. But overall, the account that we've, I think, historically been sort of nervous about is 240, the repair and maintenance by others. So that was sort of what we kept for maintenance things that we didn't expect. And I mean, this started out with just a couple $1,000s in it, you know, probably 8 years ago. And we're gonna probably spend half of it this year, which I think is a great position to be in.
It is, yeah.
I'm pleased with that. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
No, so, but to kind of along Randy's line of thinking, if we've got a little over 17% of the budget remaining with just 1 month left to go, which, you know, if things came in evenly, that would be like 8% of the budget would be spent in December. I don't recall December being classically a month that was typically twice as much as any other month. So yeah, so I would anticipate that whatever that number is that you quoted, Wendy, 150,000 or something, something like that, we'll have left over, which is great.
Yeah. And I would say, Randy, since this is your first year, typically at the end of the year, we're putting $50,000 to $80,000 into savings. So we usually have a little bit of savings in salaries. So when we have people leave and, you know, we've got a vacancy between the person leaving and a new person starting. So I feel like we always have some savings in personnel. That's going to be much bigger this year because the outreach librarian was vacant from March on.
Okay.
So yeah, that's going to add a significant amount of that.
Okay. Yeah, and not having any previous experience, I just
Right.
wanted to make sure we were on target.
Yep. Yep. Things look good. I'm happy.
Good due diligence.
Thank you. All right. So we should approve these two reports.
Yep. Yeah. So motion to approve the November financial overview and November financial register, please.
Motion to approve both.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Then let's vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, no. And the motion passes. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, any unfinished business?
I tried really hard to put the employee engagement and unfinished business, and the city clerk wouldn't let me. So I apologize that it went to new business.
So no unfinished business. We can move along to item 6, new business, and 6A, 2021 ILS purchase order.
All right, so this is the biggest payment we make in any given year. This is to South Central Library System. This payment includes a whole bunch of stuff, including the catalog. So LinkCat, as patrons know it, Bibliovation as staff know it. So that's our entire patron database, materials database. It's how we handle checkout and inventory. So that's a really big one. They not only purchase the product, but they provide all of the support for it. Technology services. So we buy our own computers, but we purchase them through South Central. So we get a pretty good discount because they're buying in bulk for all of the libraries. And they also install them for us and maintain them. So all of our updates are coming through South Central with both our staff and our patron computers. Delivery services, which are huge. So we get deliveries every day of items coming and going from the libraries. This is also Get It, which is our acquisition system. So that's how we track our purchases, make sure that we're getting everything that we've ordered and that we're getting the right discounts and that kind of thing. And then PC management. So the software that you use as a patron to log into one of our computers at the library. So it's a really big bill. It's the biggest one we have all year, but it pays for a lot. We couldn't do all of this on our own for this price tag. So I don't mind paying it. But we need your permission because it's over $25,000. Any questions?
Only one I have is how close is this to what we expected it to be?
It is actually $200 less than I expected.
Wow. It's pretty close.
Yeah. And they are really good about giving us numbers ahead of time. So we approve contract, not the contract, but the cost formula, typically in an all directors meeting in July. So it doesn't usually waver a whole lot from that.
Wendy, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this based on circulation numbers or?
There is a whole formula, so it's based on population of Fitchburg. Circulation numbers go into it a little bit, but I'm going to say it's more weighted towards population. Yeah.
Okay.
And depending on, so like the technology services, that's going to be based on the number of PCs. So we pay a fee for each piece of equipment. So it scales based on size of library for sure.
All right, so we will need a motion to approve the 2021 ILS purchase order.
I'll motion to approve it.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
Aye.
Thanks, Ben. Opposed, no? Motion passed. Okay, agenda item 6B, 2021 Biblioteka annual contract.
All right, so this was another pretty hefty bill that we pay every year. It is less this year than normal, which is great. So this is the company that we purchased the sorter from, as well as our 5 self-check machines. They are also the manufacturer of our security gates. We have 3 sets of security gates. Those are not out of service, so they still work, but they are no longer being updated. And so I asked them to take them out of the service contract. We've literally never made a service call for them in the lifetime of them. So I didn't see, we were paying almost $8,000 a year for service, and I just didn't think it was necessary. So I asked them to take it out, which technically means this didn't need to come to the board this year, because it is under $25,000 for the first time since we've been open. I didn't catch that. I just assumed it was going to be big enough, and it was still on the board calendar. So it ended up here, and I'm going to have you vote on it because it's here, and it is a hefty bill, even if it's not $25,000. But probably this is the last time that we'll see this. I think this will not show up on the board agenda next year, because I anticipate as we move to, with our RFID equipment, we used to pay for service on that as well because it was Biblioteca. We replaced that with a different company that is much less expensive to maintain. So I anticipate this getting smaller year by year. We're also set to replace the sorter, I believe in 2022 through the capital improvement plan, which means the $15,000 that we pay for service on that will go to a different company, and I think will be significantly less. So here's hoping this is the last time you see Biblioteca.
All right, so we'll need a motion to approve this invoice as well, please.
So moved?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this price is for maintenance of the equipment. It's not actually the cost of each unit that we self-check out.
Correct.
What does each unit cost if we had to replace it?
The self-checks we replaced 3 years ago, and I believe we paid about $9,000 each.
Okay.
The sorter, we obviously still have our original sorter, and it was $120,000.
Right, that one I remembered. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we can vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no? Motion is passed.
Before we move on, Jenny is going to email the signature page for both of those items to you, Stephen, and to you, Ben.
Yep.
If you could just sign it and scan it back to us, we can get that attached correctly on our end.
Will do.
Thank
Will
you.
do.
Okay, we are at agenda item 6C, Employee Engagement 2021.
All right, so I forwarded you guys an email from Sarah Olson that I had gotten a couple weeks ago. I feel like she sort of stepped up and took on a lot of work that we were planning to do. I don't know how what that's gonna look like yet. So she had emailed all the department heads to say that Aaron Richardson, the mayor, had asked that some kind of 360 review tool be implemented for all of the department heads. And then she emailed me specifically and asked if I would be on the committee. Because I think I've talked to her about us wanting to do something like it. So I volunteered to be on the committee. I think there's another week for people to email, so we haven't started meeting yet. I think her hope is from that email to get this done in the spring. So they're even willing to hold off on department head reviews that are happening in the first couple of months in order to get this in place. So I will know more as we go forward, but I think this is going to simplify things. It'll be consistent with the city, which I think is good. We've always tried really hard to be consistent with all of our review processes. So it's why we use the format that we use and the values and the competencies that we use. So I like the consistency. And then I think it'll all fit into the software that we're using already. So it doesn't really complicate the input of the material, which I'm sure we could have figured out one way or the other, but this will just make that part easier, I think. I did share with you, because the other thing we had talked about is just getting like employee feedback. So I did share with you the comments from the November in-service. They were mostly positive, which I was really happy to see. I think we've got a pretty happy crowd of people. I'm going to say also that people were pretty willing to come back into the workplace after the stay-at-home order kind of speaks to that as well. But I'm glad that we were able to get that information. And as I said, the managers will be meeting to kind of talk about what our next steps are. I think there are some things in there that I would consider low-hanging fruit that we can probably solve pretty quick. And I think there's some stuff that maybe we need a work group for, but we'll be looking into that pretty soon here. So I don't know if this is enough. If you feel like there needs to be more happening than this, I guess I would be interested in what you guys think about that.
Well, I'll chime in on this one. I think it's more than enough. It really gave me a good sense of how the employees felt about your management style and about the library in general. And it was so positive, except for the person who sounded like they wanted to wear pajamas to work. But otherwise, I think everything looked really, really good. I thought one of the biggest complaints was, I wish I could work there more hours. That seemed to be it. But otherwise, they are a happy, happy group. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear other thoughts on that. I'm, one of the things that often comes up annually as we do review is, hey, we get, 12 meetings with Wendy and see some of the staff throughout the year, but that's kind of it. So it makes some of those review questions challenging as the board, given that we don't have a lot of that interaction. I think what you shared, Wendy, adds a lot of context and background. So it does, I'm with Toby, it gives a really kind of rich sense of how things are operating and the general vibe. So I feel like that and thinking about something along those lines as a regular thing, plus you volunteering to participate in that 360 feedback tool is just a huge leap forward, and will give us a lot of additional information and context. So I really appreciate the direction, but I'd be interested to hear from others as think ahead to that review period. Does this start to round out some of those areas that people were sort of wanting for more context and background?
Yeah, I'd agree as well that I think with the city moving to 360 is that we're going to have like a much richer pool of information to draw from when we do the review. And this other report that you just sent to us is also helps round that out. So I would be comfortable moving forward with those two items.
Great.
I would agree with that. I would also add a request that on the 360, that the questions mirror the review questions as closely as possible. That would be my only request, but otherwise,
Okay.
Congratulations on the great staff feedback.
All right, I'll make a note of that and take that to our first meeting.
Wendy, you may want to defer answering this question until you have a chance to meet with staff and talk about next steps out of the the 7 pages of feedback. But I'm curious, anything jump off the page at you that says, hey, let's take a couple of these things on and potentially, like you said, some low hanging fruit. If you want to hold and wait till you work that through with staff, I completely understand.
I think I am going to hold. I will say what the first time I read through them, the frustration that arises is that I can't make everybody full time and give them benefits, and also make us not open at night and on weekends. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things that my hands are tied, and for the community, we just can't make those changes. Having said that, it's always nice to know that people are interested in being more full time, to kind of, as we grow and change as an organization, to keep that in mind. We struggle with, because we're open evenings and weekends, having enough bodies, and because we're a 2-story building, which I feel like the people who designed this didn't know this was going to be such a long-reaching effect. But because we're a 2-story building, we've got 3 desks that don't see each other. Like, we need a fair number of people to be in the building to have it safely open. So I feel like there's a lot of things to consider. But I'll say overall, I was happy with it. I was also very pleased that with the feedback just about the pandemic and about closing and about opening and curbside. I think that was all. I feel like I'm kind of moving into the place where, like, I want to be sure that we've done the right thing. Like, when history looks back on how the library handled the pandemic in 2 years, when we look back on this, I want to make sure that we did the right thing and protected the people that we're responsible for. And I feel like the feedback really made me feel like we are doing that well. And that's very much in part thanks to you as well. We couldn't be handling this in the way that we are if we didn't have your support. So, yeah. And then after we do have our next meeting, I will report back about what we think is coming.
One of the sort of thematic comments in there that really stuck out to me as just being pretty cool was that sentiment of being in service to the community and how much that mattered to the staff. I thought that was just impressive that kind of jumped off the page. So
Yes.
As was already shared, congrats on really positive and if not positive, some of the just constructive things. So it sounds like you and the team will have some good stuff to work on and be able to even show the entire staff group that you heard them and are doing some things with the info. Yeah. So very cool. All right, so we don't need to do any voting on this one. So if no further discussion, we can move along to item number 7 on the agenda, President Report. I really have no new topics to share or discuss. I just want to say Happy New Year and looking forward to this year and hope that this time next year we could be around a table and or maybe with options, but not having to be remote. So that's all I have to say for the President Report, and we can move along to item number 8, to the Library Director Report.
All right, so I sent an email out last week that we have bumped our target date for reopening to April the 7th. That was partly in response to just local numbers. And I do see hospitalizations going down, which makes me hopeful. But now that we've got new strains of COVID, I am still sort of worried about what's going to happen. We did have the opportunity to send emails to the state committee that is considering who's going to be vaccinated in Group 1B. And so I encouraged everybody on the staff to send an email, sort of just talking about how if we could get the public a place to come, I think everybody would benefit from that. So we've got people that need computers. We've got people, certainly families, that just need a place to go. Like, I feel like having the libraries open would be a benefit to the whole community, but that we need to be able to do that safely. And so just advocating that library staff be specifically spelled out in Group 1B. I believe we're discussing that either today or tomorrow. We'll see. Libraries are really good at letter writing campaigns, so I'm guessing they got a lot of emails from the library community. I saw an email go out to all of the directors in South Central, and I think that we all then sent it on to our staff, trying to get as much input as we could. So I feel like right now my ideal world would be that all the staff have access to a vaccine. I don't think we can require it. I haven't heard anything from the city about that, so I'm going to assume not. But if our staff had access to a vaccine, if they chose to get it, then I would feel much better. You know, there's always going to be the worry about the community spreading amongst themselves if they're in the building. But I think there's only so much responsibility that we can take on. So I'm really focused on the staff. I don't know timing wise how that's going to work. You know, vaccines are not going as quickly as we expected or hoped. But I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that we can try to get there before we're open. We had a meeting yesterday about reopening. It's been a while since we talked about that, and things have really changed. I think our goal now is to combine some kind of express library that we've talked about, where you can look at collections, you can get holds, and you can check out, with maintaining curbside. I will say that curbside is taking us almost as much staff time right now as being open does, so I don't see that we can do them both simultaneously. So I think that we might be looking at some kind of hybrid. One day we're open for curbside, one day we're open for public to come into the building. I don't know exactly how that's going to work. We've got a lot of things to kind of try to figure out with that. I think in that scenario, we're still expecting that we would be not offering study spaces, meeting spaces, lounging spaces, right? Like it's going to be kind of use the library and go until things kind of go further along. Who knows? You know, the things that we thought we knew were going to happen when we thought we were opening in July are completely different now. So I don't want to put any kind of like for sure plans into place because they'll just be wrong by the time it's time to do something. But we are still having the conversations just because I think we're all individually thinking about how to do this. You know, we were kicking around half days and full days and all sorts of stuff, reduced hours one way, extended hours another way. So we're putting a lot of thought into it, and we'll continue to as we get closer. I don't know how hopeful I feel about April 7th, but hopefully, I mean, it gives us time to get more information. So thank you for your support on that. A couple other things. I am excited to say that the online calendar and the newsletter. So typically we have an online calendar and newsletter that is also printed out and available in the building because a lot of people just like to put it on their fridge and see what's going on. And we haven't been doing that since February, although we've been doing online programming. So we are going to resurrect that for February. So it will have online programming for kids, adults, and then I think I've mentioned that we're doing take-home Tuesdays. So they're little craft kits for kids of different ages, and we've started doing them for adults, and they are a huge hit. On Tuesday mornings, this parking lot is like jammed full of people waiting to pick up their kits. So we're going to put that on the calendar as well as some information about curbside hours, calling, that kind of thing. One other update, we do have a bit of a problem patron at the moment that I just wanted to give you a heads up with. We've got someone who's being pretty abusive of the staff on the phone. This is not the person that I sent the incident report about, although we have heard from that person again. So this person was a problem when we were open as well in being a bit abusive of the staff. Essentially, she doesn't, I mean, she just thinks it's annoying that she has to call for curbside pickup, which I don't disagree with. It is. I mean, there's 100 things about the pandemic that are annoying. But she gets pretty nasty with the staff about how this is stupid and we're stupid and what we're doing is stupid. And she will yell her card number so fast that you can't possibly type it into a computer. And then she's mad because you didn't get her pulled up. So we are going to send her an email and tell her that she needs to be more respectful of the staff, or this might not be an option. I feel like we're kind of getting to a point where everybody's just sick of this, and some people are taking it out on us. And I feel like we're willing to shoulder that to a certain extent, but this is, I think every staff person in the building knows this person's name because it's happened to them. And I've seen people who are really good at customer service come away from a call with her pretty shaken. So just FYI, we're sending out an email to ask her to correct her behavior. I don't know if it will go further. I will keep you apprised if it does. Yeah, so that's just a heads up. And I think that's not a happy note to end on, but that's all for the director's report. Oh, no, wait, statistics. You'll notice in the statistics that we don't have anything for circulation. We are having some issues with bibliovation, and South Central is working on getting some things cleaned up. I think something wasn't calculating correctly. So we will add those as we get them. All right.
All right, thank you, Wendy. We can move right from that then to item number 9, committee reports. Any updates on any of the committees?
Facilities, yes. So I mentioned a little bit in the budget discussion, we're having some HVAC issues. So we have had for probably 3 years a very, very slow refrigerant leak in the HVAC. Our previous service company said it wasn't worth the cost of labor to rip the whole thing apart and find it. But our new company was like, well, let me just try a couple things. So he was able to, because it was low anyway, I think he filled it up with some kind of other gas, and he was able to sort of figure out where the leak was coming from. And he did have to take a couple of things apart, and there is a pretty expensive part that needs to be replaced. But I feel like Kevin's been struggling with some of the compressors not working as they should for years, and we've got enough backup ones that it hasn't really caused any noticeable issues, but it's taken up a lot of his time. So I think he's real happy that the new company was able to come in and troubleshoot some things. We are looking at probably little under $2,000 of work that was done in 2020. So that will come out of that unexpected expenses account, and we have plenty of money there. I think we've got another, is it 2,400? I think that is coming out of, that has work that has already been done. And that will come out of 2021, but then we've got about $3,000 in parts that are on order right now to fix it. Hopefully this is the end of it. I think that things have not been running the way they should, and that might be affecting the energy bill that's been low. I can't prove that. Kevin can't prove that, but that's kind of what we're thinking. We had talked last month about getting MG&E involved about the power bills, and I think we're going to ask the sustainability specialist of the city to take a look into it. But I think we might see some changes after this work is completed. But it is certainly, I mean, I think we're probably talking about $4,000 already this year. Like, nobody wants to spend that kind of money in January, right? I'd rather not have a big expense. But I think if we can get the system optimized a little bit more and to not have a leak in it would be fantastic. So that is upcoming. Just wanted to make sure you probably won't see the bills, and you'll see a little bit of it next month, but then in the coming months after that.
Wendy, I'm sorry, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around this abusive patron issue.
Yeah.
Because I find it so offensive. And do we have a written policy like, okay, one time somebody's nasty, everybody gets nasty and it's a pandemic and people are fed up. But twice, 3 times, at what point do we say, no, this is unacceptable and your privileges are revoked?
So we don't have a written, we have the code of conduct, which is really more, I think, sort of framed for in the building. I think it happens so infrequently that we really try to be tolerant and then deal with it when we have to, which is sort of where we are right now. I will say one of the things that we're thinking about for reopening is having a specific COVID policy that talks about masks and social distancing. But one of the things that we've been seeing people put into that, and I kind of want to take this and put it into our code of conduct also, is that you have to follow the directions of the staff. And I feel like at that point, we'd be pretty well positioned to say, like, the staff are telling you that you can't speak to them this way. And if you're going to continue to do it, then we're going to rescind your privileges. So yeah, I think we do have mechanisms to do that. It's not as formal as probably it is in some places. You know, I know at Central Library, they have to have all kinds of very specific guidelines because they deal with a lot of behavior issues. We're very fortunate that we don't. So I think we can handle it with what we've currently got, but I think there are some things that we could think about adding in this next year. And I am going to put, I'm going to put policy review back into our agenda calendar for this year. We took a break from that last year, but I think we can do that easily on Zoom. And I think that that's the kind of thing that I want to make sure that we're keeping up to date with.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about that or about HVAC?
HVAC, or not HVAC, the intercom.
Yeah. I don't have anything.
I had to bring it up.
Kevin and I have talked about this. He's going to reach back out to the IT department and see if either the company that gave us that quote can give us a quote for using the existing hardware that we have, even if it's not their preferred method of intercomming, or if we need to go outside. I mean, either way, we're going to need multiple quotes from multiple companies. So I kind of would like to get that quote from that company and then go out and see what else is out there. It was clicking today and making me crazy. So I'd like to get it taken care of, but also in some ways it's not super high on the list. I think mostly because I saw that $15,000 price tag and was like, I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I will hopefully have an update for you next month. And then can I give just a quick personnel update?
Yes, please.
All I have is that we did hire 2 new LA ones, and they are both in training. One of them was an internal promotion, so we also now have 2 shelver positions posted. So things are going very well personnel-wise. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. Moving on to item 10, announcements, just that our next meeting, Wednesday, February 17th, 5:30 via Zoom. And then we will need a motion to adjourn, please.
The motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, and let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the motion has passed. Thank you all very much. Have a good rest of the month, and we'll see you.